The elderly man on stage looked directly at Simon Cowell and said, "What you did saved my life, but you never knew." Simon stood up and walked off stage. America's Got Talent. The Dolby Theater in Los Angeles. Another Tuesday night taping. Another packed audience. Another lineup of hopefuls waiting to impress the judges with singing, dancing, magic tricks, comedy acts. The familiar rhythm of the show. Terry Crews introducing contestants, the judges bantering, Simon Cowell delivering his trademark brutal honesty. This was supposed to be audition number 247 of the season. An elderly man. No flashy costume. No backup dancers. No elaborate stage setup. Just a man in his 70s standing alone under the lights. Terry Crews read from his card. "Please welcome Robert Mitchell from Phoenix, Arizona." The audience applauded politely. Robert walked to center stage slowly, carefully, the way people move when age has made every step deliberate. He had gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and wore a simple button-down shirt tucked into khaki pants. He looked like someone's grandfather. He looked unremarkable. Simon leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, that familiar expression of skeptical anticipation on his face. Howie Mandel smiled encouragingly. Heidi Klum and Sofia Vergara leaned forward with interest. "So Robert," Simon said, his voice carrying that distinctive blend of authority and impatience, "what will you be doing for us today?" Robert stood at the microphone stand, but he didn't adjust it. He didn't prepare to sing or announce a talent. Instead, he looked directly at Simon Cowell and spoke in a quiet, steady voice. "I'm not here to perform," he said. The judges glanced at each other. The audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't how auditions worked. Simon's eyebrows raised. "You're not here to perform? Then why exactly are you on the America's Got Talent stage?" "Because I've been watching you for 15 years, Robert said, his voice stronger now. "And I need to tell you something. Something you don't know. Something that happened because of you." Cameras were live when the elderly man on stage turned to Simon and said, "What you did saved my life, but you never knew." Simon stood up and walked off stage. The theater went completely silent. Even Terry Crews, usually ready with a joke or comment, stood frozen at the side of the stage. Simon's arms uncrossed. His expression changed from skeptical to confused to something else, something vulnerable that the audience had rarely seen on his face. "What are you talking about?" Simon asked quietly. Robert took a breath. "May I tell you a story? It'll only take a few minutes. And then you can decide what to do with me." Simon nodded slowly. "Go ahead." 15 years ago, Robert began. "I was 62 years old. I just lost my wife to cancer. Margaret. We'd been married for 41 years. She died in March, and by December, I'd lost everything else too. My job, I couldn't focus, kept making mistakes, eventually they let me go. My house, couldn't make the mortgage payments. My relationship with my kids, they tried to help but I pushed them away." The audience was completely still now, every person leaning forward, sensing this was something different. "By Christmas of that year, I was living in my car," Robert continued, his voice steady but his eyes glistening. "Parked in a lot behind a shopping center in Phoenix. I was alone. Broke. And I didn't want to be alive anymore." Sofia Vergara's hand went to her mouth. Howie's usual smile had vanished completely. Heidi's eyes were already wet with tears. "On Christmas Eve," Robert said, "I decided that would be my last night. I'd written notes to my kids. I had everything planned. But first, I was going to watch one more thing on the little battery-powered TV I had in my car. Just one more show before I was done." He paused, looking directly at Simon. "It was Britain's Got Talent. The Christmas special from 2009. And there was an act, a dance group. A group of kids who'd lost parents, who'd been through tragedy, who got back up and danced anyway. And you, Simon, you gave them the golden buzzer. And after they performed, you said something? Simon stopped the show. No one knew what was happening. Simon was gripping the edge of the judge's desk now, his knuckles white. The camera stayed locked on his face, capturing every micro-expression. You said? Robert's voice cracked now, emotion breaking through. You said life knocks you down? And the only thing that matters is whether you get back up. Whether you choose to keep going. Because the people who loved you would want you to keep going. A sound rippled through the audience. Not quite crying, not quite gasping. Something in between. And I sat in that car. Robert continued, tears now streaming down his face. In a parking lot on Christmas Eve, ready to end everything, and I heard you say those words. And I thought about Margaret. About what she would say if she knew what I was planning. And I realized she'd want me to get back up. The theater was so quiet you could hear the stage lights humming. I didn't end my life that night, Robert said. I drove to my daughter's house instead. I knocked on her door at 2 in the morning and I told her I needed help. And she helped me. My kids helped me. I got therapy. I got housing assistance. I found a part-time job. I rebuilt my life piece by piece. And I did it because of what you said on that show. You weren't talking to me. You were talking to those kids on stage. But I heard you. And it saved my life. Simon Cowell, legendary judge, music mogul, the man known for crushing dreams and delivering harsh truths, had tears running down his face. He stood up abruptly. His chair scraped backward. The other judges looked at him in shock. I need a moment, Simon said, his voice barely controlled. And he walked off stage. Not to his dressing room. Not backstage. He walked into the wings and stood there, hand over his face, shoulders shaking. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this performance is still ahead. Terry Crews didn't know what to do. The producers in the control room were frantically talking into headsets. Howie, Heidi, and Sophia sat frozen at the judge's desk. Robert stood alone on stage, tears on his face, waiting. After what felt like an eternity but was probably 90 seconds, Simon walked back onto the stage. Not to the judge's desk. He walked straight across the stage to Robert. The audience began to realize what was happening and rose to their feet. Simon stopped directly in front of Robert. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then Simon reached out and pulled the elderly man into an embrace. The theater erupted. Not in applause, not yet. But in that collective sound of 300 people witnessing something profound. The sound of shared tears. Simon was still crying. Robert was crying. The cameras captured it all, the moment when television stopped being entertainment and became something real. When they finally pulled apart, Simon kept one hand on Robert's shoulder. I don't know what to say, Simon admitted, his voice rough. I give my opinion on performances. I critique singing and dancing. I never thought. You never thought your words mattered that much, Robert finished for him. But they did. They do. Every time you tell someone they're good enough. Every time you give someone a chance. Every time you push the golden buzzer for someone who's been knocked down. You're saving lives, Simon. You just never knew it. Backstage, producers were begging him to continue, but he didn't. Simon turned to face camera one directly. Can we stop tape for a second? The director's voice came through the speakers. Simon, we're on a schedule. I said stop. Simon interrupted, his voice firm but not angry. Everyone stay exactly where you are. I need to say something. The red lights on the cameras stayed on, but the usual hustle of the production froze. Simon looked at Robert, then at the audience, then into the camera. I've been doing this for 20 years, he said. Talent shows. Judging. Critiquing. Being the tough one, the harsh one, the one who says no when everyone else says yes. And I've always believed that what I do matters because of the winners. The people who go on to have careers. The success stories. He paused, composing himself. But Robert just taught me something. He taught me that what we say, what I say, echoes in ways I can't see. There are people watching who aren't performing, who aren't auditioning, who are just struggling. And maybe one sentence, one moment of encouragement, one golden buzzer for someone who deserves it, maybe that ripples out further than I ever imagined. He looked back at Robert. You drove 2 hours to get here today? 3, Robert said with a small smile. There was traffic. And you're not going to sing for us? Or dance? Or do a magic trick? No. I just needed to tell you thank you. I needed you to know that your words mattered. That you mattered. That Margaret would be proud of what you helped me become. Simon took a deep breath. Then he turned to the other judges. Howie, Heidi, Sophia. What do you think? Can someone get a golden buzzer without performing? Howie Mandel stood up immediately. Absolutely. Heidi and Sophia nodded, both crying openly now. Simon turned back to Robert. I think we need a new rule. Just this once. But what happened next, no one in the theater, or watching at home, could ever forget. Simon walked to the judge's desk. He placed his hand over the golden buzzer, that big red button that signified something special, something extraordinary. Robert Mitchell, Simon said, his voice carrying across the theater. You didn't come here to audition. You came here to tell me that hope matters. That words matter. That even when we don't know it, we're touching lives. He looked at the other judges. We all press it together. Howie, Heidi, and Sophia came to stand beside Simon at the button. On 3, Simon said. 1, 2, 3. All 4 judges pressed the golden buzzer simultaneously. Golden confetti exploded across the stage. The sound system blasted the triumphant music. The audience went absolutely wild, screaming, crying, applauding, standing, celebrating this moment that defied every rule of the show. Robert stood in the center of the stage, covered in golden confetti, crying and laughing simultaneously. Terry Crews ran onto stage and embraced him. The judges all came onto the stage, something that never happened during auditions, and surrounded Robert in a group embrace. Simon stood there, his arm around this elderly man who had driven 3 hours to deliver a thank you 15 years in the making, and let himself cry openly on camera for one of the only times in his career. Share and subscribe, so this story will never be forgotten. After the show, in Simon's dressing room, Robert gave him something. An old photograph, worn at the edges. It showed Robert and his wife Margaret on their wedding day, both young and smiling, a lifetime of love ahead of them. I want you to have this, Robert said. So you remember? So you know that Margaret is part of this story too. She'd want you to have it. Simon took the photograph carefully. I'll keep it with me. Always. That photograph now sits framed in Simon's office. Beside it, a small plaque. Words matter. Robert Mitchell, 2024. The golden buzzer rules were never officially changed. Robert didn't go on to compete in the live shows. That wouldn't have made sense. But the episode aired in full, unedited, every emotional second preserved. It became one of the most watched AGT auditions of all time. Not for a performance, but for proof that television can do more than entertain. Sometimes it can save lives. Simon Cowell still judges with his trademark honesty. He still delivers harsh truths when needed. But those who know him say something changed after Robert Mitchell. Now, when Simon gives someone a yes, he means it deeper. When he pushes a golden buzzer, he understands it might reach someone he'll never meet. When he tells someone they're good enough, he knows those words might save a life. Robert lived to see his grandchildren graduate college. He walks his daughter down the aisle at her second wedding. He volunteers at a crisis hotline 3 days a week, telling people who call in their darkest moments that life knocks you down, but you can get back up. And every Christmas Eve, he watches that 2009 Britain's Got Talent episode. The one that saved his life. And he thinks about Margaret. and he thanks Simon Cowell for words he never knew mattered. Share and subscribe, so this story will never be forgotten. The photograph of Robert and Margaret still sits in Simon's office. A reminder that we never know who's listening, or whose life might change because we chose kindness.